Driver, start your engines. 3, 2, 1, go.
I just don't understand why I have to be Ford.
Oh, dang.
They're going to win.
Oh!
Woo! Just like the movie. All right, welcome to You Gotta See This Movie. This is a podcast with two guys who love to talk about movies as well as talk about the deeper themes that make these stories more than just a movie. My name is Michael, and across from me in the losing section is Jim.
That's me.
Jim, how you doing?
I'm a loser.
Well, you are today.
Today, that's right.
Yeah, but that's okay.
Well, I just wanted our audience to know that this is the wrong Ferrari.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to put in the comments that that's the wrong Ferrari,
Yeah.
I don't have a 330. I just had the 512. That's all I had.
You know, I'm actually glad you brought that up because I was nervous about that all our, thousands of viewers were going to say, hey,
Nice setup.
nice setup. That's not the right car.
You guys don't know what you're doing.
Because people know cars. And but I'm glad you cleared the air. So
Yeah.
there you go, people. All right. Well, other than that, how you doing?
Doing really good.
Doing good.
Yeah.
Enjoying the rest of your summer. We're in August now. That's
August.
nice.
Yeah, it's nice. We got a little rain this morning. A little summer rain.
Summer rain.
Yeah.
Can't beat that. Well, that's cool. So I got a question for you. See if you know this. Because you're more of a car guy than I am. I think there are cool cars,
Right.
but like you know cars.
Right.
Like you know
I like
cars.
cars.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the things that attracted me to this movie is I'm a huge fan of cars of the 50s and 60s. Mid 50s, early 60s. Man,
Yeah.
the automotive styling in that era they just nailed it.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
I mean, so many of my favorites are just,
So I have a question for you. So
Yeah.
Popular Mechanics put out a little thing talking about the most iconic movie cars in movie history.
Okay.
And they came up with 40, but I'm curious to see how many you could guess in the top 5.
Okay, so this
I'll kind of help you out a little bit.
is iconic movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll tell you 10 from 6. So it kind of eliminates some for you. So at number 10, again, this is according to Popular Mechanics.
All right.
Number 10 is the 1970 Dodge Charger that is used in Fast and the Furious. The number 9 is the Batmobile from Batman Begins.
Okay.
Which is a tumbler, that tank looking one. The number 8 is the 1973 GT Ford Falcon, which is, what movie that's from? It's actually one of my favorites. Mad Max.
Really, Mad Max?
Yeah, that's number 9. Or
Yeah,
number
but
8.
was that car like all like Mad Maxified with spikes sticking out and stuff, and
kind
like
of, but
3 motors and yeah.
Number 7 is the 1970 Dodge Challenger from The Vanishing Point.
Okay.
It's classic, that white Charger. And then number 6.
I've never seen A Vanishing Point. What's that one about?
I think
I know the title.
Maybe that one has Sylvester Stallone in it. It might. One of them.
Point.
One of those old. I don't know if it's Vanishing Point or Death Race.
Death Race 2000.
Yeah, one of them has Sylvester Stallone in it. So number 6 is the 1968 Mustang GT 39, which is Bullet's car.
Bullet.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's. I actually thought that was gonna be in the top 5, but as we will learn, a Mustang is a secretary's car.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're in the top 5. What would you guess? Top 5 most iconic movie cars.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with Herbie the Love Bug. Has to be on there, right?
It is not.
Oh, it's not.
I mean, maybe it's later on, but it's not top 5.
Okay, the DeLorean, Back to the Future.
Of course, that is actually number 5.
Okay, did they do Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
No, not in there.
That's just too antique-y, weird. Okay, iconic movie cars. Eleanor, Gone in 60 Seconds.
No. Some of these, there's one that I would never have thought, and it's actually number 2 on Popular Mechanics list. And I'll just tell you, It was a 1976 Lotus E-Spirit from The Spy Who Loved Me. It's a James Bond movie.
Oh, that's the submarine one.
The submarine one, yeah. I would never have thought that would have been on the list. But
well, and then probably the Aston Martin and James Bond.
So that
Aston
is
Martin,
number one,
that's
the
number
1964
one. Okay.
Aston Martin. That's
Okay.
the number one car. So I'll tell you that number 3 and number 4, those two cars, the movies were made in the 70s, but not necessarily the 1970s cars. And one you could probably guess. It's one of your favorite movies that you talk about quite a bit.
I'm going to kick myself when I don't get it. I don't know.
All right. Number 4, the 1932 Ford Coupe from American Graffiti.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the one I thought you'd get. And then number 3.
Not Tucker, not the Ford.
No, Harrison
Tucker.
Ford's car.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
wait, no, the yellow one. I'm sorry. Yeah, it is. It's the yellow one.
Yeah.
The 34, the 30. It's the one he bases Harrison Ford.
Right.
And then the number 3 is the 1977 Pontiac Trans Am from
Smoking the Bandit.
Smoking the Bandit.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually thought the Tim Burton's Batmobile, this thing would have been top 5 right here.
So where was the DeLorean on that list?
That's number 5. Yeah.
Oh, it is number 5.
Number 5.
Okay. And Herbie's not on there, huh?
Herbie is...
I mean, come on.
Oh, Christine is number 15.
Okay.
Ghostbuster Mobile is number 18. Vacation, which we just talked about, was number 22. Yeah, I don't see no Herbie, man.
Man. I mean, that one's been made over.
Dukes of Hazzard. Oh, here's Herbie, number 35. The 1963 Volkswagen Beetle.
So the Dukes of Hazzard, the General Lee, where does that one?
That was right in front of Herbie.
Dang.
Yeah. Oh, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is number 40.
Okay, it has to be on the list.
It's number 40. That's the last one.
Wow.
All right. Well, what is the movie that we got to see?
The movie we got to see is Ford versus Ferrari.
Yeah.
All right. 2019. American car designer Carroll Shelby and driver Ken Miles battle corporate interference and the laws of physics to build a revolutionary race car for Ford in order to defeat Ferrari at the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Le Mans.
Le Mans. Le Mans?
Le Mans.
Le Mans. In 1966.
1966. All right. So basically, this movie in a nutshell is it's a true story. This driver and this car designer create that car. They go and they have all these troubles along the way, and eventually they go to race.
That's pretty good.
I don't know. You pretty much said it in a nutshell.
That's a nutshell. Yeah.
All right. So I'm excited about this show, because like we've done other movies like, Indiana Jones, we've done Star Wars. These are all movies that people have seen and have loved and love to talk about it. But this is a movie where a lot of people may not have seen. And I know it wasn't on my list to see.
Why wasn't it on your list?
I don't know. It just really wasn't.
Well, you know what? A lot of people think it's a car movie. Oh, it's a racing movie.
Yeah.
I'm not really into cars. I don't want to see it.
And it wasn't until it came out, after its theater run, that I watched it, and I loved this movie. I was blown away by it.
I don't remember if I went to the theater to see it or not. I think I did.
I didn't. So it definitely was off my radar, and I think this is off a lot of people's radar. So I'm excited. So if anything, if we got listeners that have not seen this movie, I mean, it is a true story, so it's not like we're going to be giving away any spoilers because it happened. But if you don't want to be spoiled and you just want to go based on our recommendation, stop the podcast, go watch the movie, then come back. But if not, I hope that we do a good job trying to sell this movie, because I do believe that this truly is a movie that everyone needs to see.
They absolutely have to see
They
it.
absolutely need to see it. So
Now, I knew about this because, I'm not really a car racing, expert or anything, but I do know that the 1966 Le Mans, Ford versus Ferrari, probably the greatest battle in motorsport history. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's like, it is a big deal. And so I kind of knew the story behind it. There's a documentary called The 24-Hour War, which is amazing. I don't know, did you see that? I think it was on Netflix.
Yes, I did see that.
Yeah, really, really good.
Yeah.
I mean, you can watch the movie and that at the same time, and you can get more of the story. But Carroll Shelby, played by Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that guy was just incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He and just kind of going to the acting. That's one thing I loved about the movie is these parts, and I don't really. I mean, the only person I knew in this movie was, I mean, the Ford guy, Henry Ford, but also I knew Carroll Shelby, and I didn't know too much about him, but I just knew he was a real person. But I didn't know Ken Miles, and I didn't know any of that stuff. But acting or the real people aside, the acting of this movie I thought was phenomenal. Like, they just played these parts really well.
It's funny, you watch the movie and then, Ken Miles' character played by Christian Bale. Mm-hmm. And it's like, man, he nailed that role.
Okay, so you would say he did.
But I say that, but then I think, did I know anything about Ken Miles? No.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing he did, right? He played the part so well that you kind of believe that that's exactly who Ken was.
Right, yeah. I loved, I mean, the acting in this was just top notch. And, even going back to, Matt Damon, Christian Bale, who it's hard to think about, like, okay, who is this movie about? Like, if you were to pick one of them, and I don't know if you can, like, it really, really is a movie about both of them.
Yeah.
Because they both kind of have their own things. But some other actors in that movie that I really liked was there was that Josh Berthal, which he played Lee Iacocca. I always like that guy. That guy's in a lot of things that I've seen. He hasn't had like big movie moment or big movie that he's in yet.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that I know I've seen him in a bunch of stuff, but I can't name anything.
Yeah.
Can you name anything?
I know he was in the Fury, which was like a war movie. He's part of an ensemble cast. He was in The Walking Dead. He's in the Marvel movies. He's the Punisher, which I think he's an excellent Punisher. I just whenever he's in a movie, he's one of those guys like, oh, cool, he's in this movie. Yeah, I'm gonna watch it because I just like him.
And what about Leo Beebe?
Oh, Josh Lucas.
Oh man, that guy.
It's his voice, right? Like I don't mean to get down on Josh Lucas, but there's something like really sleazy about his voice. Like, hey.
Well, yeah, it's his voice with the smile.
The smile, yeah. But Josh Lucas, he did a great job just being that antagonist for the movie.
Henry Ford.
I don't know who played Henry Ford, but
I saw him recently in something, and I'm like, hey, it's Henry Ford, that guy. Yeah. And his son was great. Peter was great.
Oh yeah, the boy.
Yeah, and
he did really good.
And his wife, I can't think of Molly. What's the actress's name?
I don't know. She's in a show that my wife watches. Though.
Yeah, she's in everything now.
I can't think of the show.
Her face pops up everywhere now.
I remember because I watched this with my wife. And this is one of those movies that, like, I think I had to talk her into watching at first. Because again, you think like, oh, race car movie, action movie, but it's not that.
No,
it really is just a good story. And after my wife watched it, she said, oh, that was a really good movie. But anyways, when the Molly came up, she goes, oh, I know her. She's in so-and-so. And I can't think of it right now, but my wife knew she was. So, and then of course, this is directed by James Mangold.
Yes, James Mangold.
Which some would say, when I mean some, I think maybe
I said
me.
that sarcastically because I can't think of what. Yeah, you.
But I do think this is the movie that got him the indie job, because then he took over for Spielberg for Dial of Destiny.
Okay, so that doesn't make any sense because I went on IMDb and I say, hey, what else did James Mangold direct? And that didn't even come up.
He directed Logan, which is a Marvel movie. Wolverine. That's by far, I think, my favorite comic book movie.
Walk the Line. He did
Walk the Line with Johnny
really
Cash.
Good. Yeah.
I think he did like a war movie, but I can't think of it. Anyways, but I think he's a talented director. Yeah, maybe I really didn't care for his take on Indiana Jones, but I think he's a great director and he's made some great
Yeah, he
films.
knows how to make good films.
It's just he took someone else's job and he tried to do it. That's all he did. If he just stuck to his own original movies, James Mangold, he's great. He should just not have done the indie job.
Still a little hurt by
little
that.
bit. Spielberg let me down.
You're talking about the director, but I think you have to talk about editing, and I think they won an Oscar for editing, right? I'm pretty sure.
Maybe.
I
Yeah.
think so.
I know that it definitely wasn't. You know, it was. It definitely was up there. I can't remember.
I think it did win an Oscar for editing.
Yeah.
That's so good.
And sound.
You know, because the director comes in and he gets all he has the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he sort of orchestrates this thing, gets all the shots. You know, gets everything in the can, gets all the bits and pieces, and then the editor has to come in and put it all together.
Yeah.
And that can make or break a film.
Yeah.
Oh man, they nailed it.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I've seen this movie so many times, and yet, like at the end of the race or the end of each race, you just want to jump out of your seat and just cheer.
Yeah,
because it gets you wound up,
and I think
the action gets you wound
you're
up.
Right.
And you're just like, whoa! Again, I know I've seen it a dozen times, but yeah, it's really good.
There's an emotional reaction to what the characters are doing, and again, like seeing it again just recently, watching it this week, and I've seen this multiple times. It's like you still have that, and to me, like that's a rare thing. That's something you get with like Rocky winning, right?
Yeah.
Or like Karate Kid. Like you know what's going to happen, but yet you're so invested in the characters, and you see when they finally reach that moment of achievement,
mm-hmm.
You can't help but like, you know, cheer for them.
Right.
And I think they nailed that.
But there's so many moments in the movie like that where it's just you know, it's like the punchline, the big hit, you know, when the scene plays out and it's like boom.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So Jim, what was one of your favorite scenes?
Oh, right out of the gate is that opening. Carroll Shelby racing at Le Mans.
Oh yeah. The opening scene.
Yeah, he pulls into the pit, just worn, beat, tired. They're fueling up the car and they spill the gas and boom, and lights on fire. You know, and they just in his pit crew they're like, okay, the race is over, man. This guy was on fire. We're done. He's like, fill the tank. Am I on fire? Fill the tank. So good.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that like kind of kicks off the movie is that Carroll Shelby, Matt Damon's character, he's the only one that's ever beaten Ferrari. You know, he wasn't racing for an American team, but he was the first American to beat Ferrari.
Right. And he was, and it was, you know, that I learned from the documentary is that he was an amazing race car driver,
Mm-hmm.
just winning over and over and over again. You know, in his early years, he would just, you know, every little race he would just win them just over and over. And he wasn't the norm in the, you know, in the racing car world. He came to race a car in his, you know, in his overalls, you know, and the cowboy hat. And that was kind of his thing. Yeah. I'm going to get, and I'm just going to race and I'm going to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that opening scene. You just see how tired he is too.
Yeah.
Like as he's racing and he's going to these high speeds and you're just like, wow, how dangerous this is. But again, that was his race. He won, first American to beat Ferrari. And then, you know, he can't race no more. So that kind of sets up the whole movie that he's kind of done medically. He can't race no more.
Because of his heart condition. Yeah.
One of the things I liked about this movie, and in the early on, because it's all about these two cars, right? That's why it's called Ford versus Ferrari. They kind of have two different scenes. They show one where they're showing the Ford plant, you know, the assembly line, the thing that kind of Ford was famous for, right? And then, so they show that factory, they see what it is. And then there's a scene where they go to the Ferrari factory, and like the contrast between those two things, right, was very interesting.
Right.
And I like how like in the Ford factory, you've just got these people at this assembly line. They're just part after part after part. And then you go to the Ferrari and it's like every single part is like hand done. And it's very like artistic, and they take their time and kind of shows the two different sides of what we're dealing with here.
Right. It's like the American diner where the guys are like, you know, they're like making the hamburgers and just getting them done and, you know, and then serving them up. And then you cut to the fine Italian restaurant.
Right.
Where they're, yes.
And I think they even say like, we make more cars in a day than they make in a whole year. You know, we make more Fords than, you know, profit, like a company wise, they're a better company. but they don't necessarily make the better car. But yeah, I love that. And even just the tone of the color palette of the two factories. Like the Ford was like all dark and bluish and gray, and then you go to Ferrari and it's like bright and reds, and I just thought it was really cool. But
I think it's crazy that Ford that they actually were going to buy Ferrari.
Yeah, there was a moment there.
Just a moment, right?
Yeah.
But then they weren't,
because
as we learned in the movie, they were just using Ford to up their price with Fiat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was one of my trivia questions.
Oh.
So I'm down to one.
Just blew. and I meant to look it up and see the history. So does Fiat still own Ferrari? Or not? I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, they sold the Ferrari.
Enzo
Ferrari, yeah, like a mafia Italian.
It was like a total mafia scene, right? Dang.
Yeah. What I like too is kind of going back, and there's always something in the movie that kind of, if this scene didn't happen, this movie wouldn't take place, right? Or whatever. And I like the scene where when Ferrari finally, they were not selling to you, and pretty much just badmouths Henry Ford and says all these things, and it was like.
Do you think he really did that, in real life? He made the sale with Fiat. He doesn't need Ford anymore. You don't need these Americans here.
Yeah.
Do you think he really insulted him like that? Because that was harsh.
I don't know, but that was it, right? Because it was like, oh yeah, he says you're lazy. He says you're fat, and at first he's paying no attention to it, right? He's just kind of like, okay. Well, what else did he say? And then it was, oh, he says that you're not Henry Ford. You're just Henry Ford II.
Yeah, and you see it in his face.
Yeah,
right? You
that
see
was
I'm corporate. I'm business. I know this is dog eat dog. I can take fat.
Yeah,
I can take lazy, whatever. But he says, yeah,
but you're not your dad.
Not your dad. Ooh,
yeah. So that got him right. That was the spark that lit the match. That's what put this whole movie in action. Kind of going forward. But that was a cool scene because you do see his expression just change, like, how dare you? Yeah.
And so now it's like, okay, we're gonna build a race car to beat Ferrari, and so I wonder what that process was really like, though. Can we do it? Can we get our designers and our engineers? I mean, it's just a matter of engineering and physics, right? But then they found Carroll Shelby. They went to him, approached him.
Yeah.
Blank check.
Because now he's making cars. So he can't race cars. He's going to make cars.
Yeah.
So, blank check.
Blank check.
Yeah.
And I love that scene where he's just describing, Le Mans and the race. It's just it's not like NASCAR where you just turn left for, an hour, however long those races are. And it's country road. It's not graded. There's no camber on the turns.
It's like so much that can go wrong.
Yeah, half the race is in the dark. You can't see. You're tired.
Yeah.
I couldn't be a race car driver. Could you be a race car driver? I couldn't do it.
I feel like I maybe could have.
Do you have that edge? Do you have that competitive
I think I do. I did. I mean, the 24-hour Le Mans, that was crazy.
Yeah.
But I remember wanting to race motorcycles as a kid, and kind of pushing it and even when growing up, I had my Camaro and racing my Camaro just with friends and stuff. And just, I just liked going fast. But there is that moment of when you're driving really fast and you realize, oh, I'm about 100 miles an hour. And then you realize oh geez, I should probably slow down. But you don't realize it at first, but I don't know.
I identify with Phil, the mechanic. I mean, that's where I fit right in.
Yeah.
I'm more about the, handcrafting the car and troubleshooting and
So I can remember, when all of us, my friends, got cars, and again, hopefully my kids will never hear this because I never want them to do this, but where we lived, for the longest time, it was just a lot of grape fields. So it wasn't, Ontario, that whole side of Ontario wasn't developed. And when we got cars and we all got our license, when gas was cheap. We didn't have to like all split for gas. It was let's race from Altaloma to the Ontario Mills. And we would do that race quite a bit. And it's like, no matter how you get there, you could take whatever
you just
route you want to make.
Like racing on the street?
But you'd race on the street to get there.
That's crazy.
So it's like, yeah, and it would be raced from our friend's house in Altaloma to right where the AMC theater is so part of it's running too, because you got to park the car and then run. But I can remember like just driving and doing like cutting through like parking lots, like at a red light when you're going to make a right, you want to cut through a parking lot just to bypass the light.
Yeah.
Doing that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very dangerous, but it wasn't as trafficky or developed back then. So it was a bit more safe, but it's nothing I'd ever, admit to my dad about or my kids. So, but I'll admit to everyone else.
Wow.
And I did. Me and my 1991 Chevy Cavalier won a lot of those races.
Wow.
And not because that Chevy Cavalier was fast, but because, I took the chances in driving.
Yeah.
But
it's all about the driver.
Yeah, it's all about the driver.
Yeah. Ken Miles.
So part of me was like, yeah, being a race car driver would have been fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have liked to have done that.
All right. Yeah, I could have been a racing mechanic guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So another one of my favorite scenes is kind of when Shelby finally decides to agree, or he agrees to come in, but he wants to make a big entrance. Right. And they're having this.
Oh, he's doing his speech for Ford.
They're kicking off the Ford race team, and they're flying in, and it cracks me up. They're about to land, and he just says, "Hey, you mind if I take a crack at landing this plane?" And the pilot was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?"
Yeah.
And then
well, yeah, he did say, "Oh, well, I flew.
I flew in the war.
B-52 bombers, made a few runs, so he knows what he's doing." Yeah.
But still, he's just like, pilot's like, "Yeah, sure. I'll just get on over and move over." But and then all the other people in the back, like, "Are you serious? Like, you're really gonna land this plane?" And he lands it with style, right? He just pulls it right up and turns it.
Yeah, like a car. Yeah, he
just
like pulls in and he does a little skid turn thing, and just
he pops right out, puts on his hat, walks up to the podium. I was like, "That's an entrance."
So I wonder if that's like kind of a true story, or if they just made that up.
I don't know. I like to believe it was.
I'm gonna believe it was.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, that's a cool legend, even if it wasn't. Just like, man, Carroll Shelby, what a cool guy.
Yeah. Something's wrong with the plane. I wonder who's flying it. I'll give you one guess.
Yeah, I'll give you one guess. I know who's flying that plane. But yeah, that was such a cool scene.
Okay, one of my favorite scenes is early in the film, Willow Springs Raceway.
Mm-hmm.
Ken's going to take out he's going to race the Cobra. And the tech guys going through the pits, and he has that suitcase looking thing and tries to fit it in the trunk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course it doesn't fit. And Ken's all about racing, racing's number one, rules are second. And it's like, come on, seriously. Mm-hmm. And then he just, so rather than be disqualified, he just takes a hammer to the trunk of the car and just beats it until that thing fit.
And it wasn't, and I think that's where, Ken, and as a good introduction to his character, just who he is, right? Because it was, had nothing to do with racing. Had nothing to do with the performance of the car.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, every car needs this amount of trunk space.
Right.
And it was something silly and dumb.
Yeah.
And red tape-ish, right?
Yeah.
And he just takes a hammer. So, there you go. But,
happy? Yeah. And that's where we really learn about Ken and how he can be a little difficult.
Yeah. That's when you learn, like, not everyone wants to work with Ken, but Carroll Shelby will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good scene. And that's one thing I liked about I think just why I think I really like this movie. I mean, the cars were great and all that stuff, but the relationship between Shelby and Ken, I think, was great. And watching them, because you're obviously coming into the movie, they already have a you don't see when they meet or how they become friends, or even if they were friends, you're coming into the movie, they already have a relationship.
Yeah.
And in their first interaction together, Ken Miles throws a wrench at him.
Yeah.
You know, and
Okay. When he picks up the wrench, he saves the wrench, right?
oh yeah,
Okay, so this is going to go back to a conversation we've had earlier. A MacGuffin.
a
A
MacGuffin.
MacGuffin.
Yeah.
Is that wrench a MacGuffin?
I don't think so.
Not really.
No, because you know it.
It's not really. It's a prop in the film, but it's not.
Yeah.
Is there a MacGuffin in this movie?
I don't think there is. I mean, part of me, if I don't know, if I really want to deep dive into it, if I have to choose something, I would say maybe the race itself is.
Well,
But no, but it gets-
the car.
it gets-
The
it
car
gets-
would be right.
No, because you can explain the car,
Okay, so for our listeners, Michael introduced me to the word MacGuffin,
which
I
blows my mind that
I didn't know the
you've
term.
this many years you've never heard of that
and
term.
I've never heard of that term, and I
Yeah.
still think it's kind of weird. But so now when I watch a movie, it's like, what's the MacGuffin?
So the famous MacGuffin in all movies, they consider it to be like the Maltese Falcon,
Right.
the Ark in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like Indiana Jones all have the MacGuffin. Every Indiana Jones has one. Just whatever that's that mysterious object, Rosebud in Citizen Kane, it's a mysterious object that propels the characters of the movie into whatever action it is. But as an audience, you don't know what it is.
Right. It's usually
Yeah.
those
and you
things-
may or may
yeah,
not ever know what it is.
those things that people basically do replicas of and put on their
Right.
shelves.
Yeah.
and,
Like, oh, I got this.
I got this from that movie.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this movie has that. I don't think it does. It's just a good movie. Not every movie has to have one.
No.
Yeah.
No.
But
The
yeah.
MacGuffin. Still think it's a weird name.
So why do you think he held on to that wrench?
That is interesting. Yeah, I don't know. That can't be the first wrench he threw at him.
Maybe he just knew because he was onto something. Because then he gives it to his friend immediately. He says, "Frame this."
Is it from that race? No,
It was-
that was the first time that the Cobras won. They actually beat Chevrolet. They beat the Corvettes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal.
So it was a huge deal.
Oh wow, I really wouldn't have known that in the movie. I just thought he just won a race.
Yeah, I remember because they were like, that the Corvettes were pretty much dominating at that point. And the Cobra
which
Cobra was Carroll's
Yeah.
design, and he put those together. So he's introduced those cars to the racing world.
Makes total sense now.
Yeah. And they finally beat him.
Yeah. So going within their whole relationship, you see him throw a wrench, but yet they obviously like each other. They're friends. And so they have that moment of, he invites him to join the team. He's going to do it. But at the same time, like Shelby is kind of putting the team and the car together. He wants Ken Miles to be the driver, but Ken Miles doesn't necessarily trust the executives at Ford. And so there's this whole like give and take, and he's always afraid that Ford's going to screw him over, which he does. And it kind of leads to a fist fight, which right in front of Miles's house, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah, that's the best. It's one of those things where you talk about relationship and friendship,
Mm-hmm.
and really this movie, I think it really is mostly about that friendship that they have, and it's kind of like a brotherly,
Mm-hmm.
Friendship, to where they can fight,
Yeah.
punch each other in the face and bite each other, and not bite. We were talking about the bite, the llama.
Oh, the llama bite.
I call that my llama bite.
That's my llama bite.
That's my llama bite. Yeah. But yeah, having a friend, a best friend, so close that that you can get into a, roll on the ground fight with.
So he just wanted to punch him once. It wasn't like I want to destroy him.
No, he just wanted to punch him.
You once. Like, man, you're frustrating me.
Yeah.
And then Carroll Shelby was like, well, I'm not going to take that. And then they're on the ground fighting,
rolling around. Yeah. And you understand their relationship when Carroll picks up a can to smack him in the head, puts it down, grabs the loaf of bread because he really doesn't want to hurt him.
Yeah, I don't want to damage you.
I don't want to really hurt him. But,
yeah. So then he's hitting him with a loaf of bread.
Yeah, and then it's great when his wife Molly comes. She sees him fighting.
I
in
love
the
that
park.
scene.
Yeah, she grabs her magazine. She grabs her folding chair, walks on the front lawn, sets it out, and just watches the
doesn't
fight.
break it up. Just
No,
like they gotta get it out of their system.
Yeah, like a couple of kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, "Can you get me a fizzy pop?"
Yeah.
And she goes, "Do you want one too, Carol?" No, he can get his own fizzy pop. Just me.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good scene.
That's a great scene.
I got it's my did you know scene. So what was really cool about this scene is that Christian Bale and Matt Damon, this was like their favorite scene to film in the movie.
Oh, I bet.
And the reason being was they really just kind of got to go at it. So you got Matt Damon, who in a sense, he's Jason Bourne. He's that spy, right? You've got Christian Bale, who's Batman. They said, we're used to like hours upon hours of fight choreography and doing all these like lethal blows and stuff. He says it was just fun to be there for 15 minutes, talk about what we're going to do, and then just go at it.
Yeah.
So they said it was a real like breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And they got to kind of make it up as they went, Yeah.
But, so I wonder if that when he picked up the can and the bread gag, which is perfect.
Yeah.
It tells so much, about the relationship, if that was made up or if that was.
Yeah.
I bet it was made up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure they did get into fights though.
What do you mean?
Like in real life? I bet.
Totally. Yeah. If Ken was anything like the movie portrays him as being,
both of them.
Both of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Throwing wrenches. Fighting on the ground. Yeah. It's one of my other favorite scenes is at this point in the movie, Carroll Shelby, he's really frustrated. He's really trying to get this thing done. He wants to build this car. He wants to, win at Le Mans, and Leo Beebe is just in the way every step of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then he finds out that he's been given, what do you call it? The
authority, complete authority.
Basically the authority over the entire project. And they're, and they show up at the factory, and Carol's like, great. What do I do? Let's talk in private.
Yeah.
So when he locks him in the office, he takes him in the office, slowly, draws the blinds.
Yeah.
And BB's like, he's I hope this won't be a problem between us. And he's like, Nope, not at all. Click, locks the door. And that's when he takes, Ford on his drive. But that was just so good that he just locks him in the office.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which leads to another great scene that I think you mentioned.
So kind of backing up a little bit. What I love about that scene is because it's right after the fight scene, right? It's because all that Leo Beebe guy did not want, Miles to be the driver. He wanted a different person because he didn't trust him. But that's Shelby's driver.
Yeah.
So it's this like internal struggle, and then it all stops with that. After the fight, he says, "I got a plan." It was extremely risky. Though how risky? He's like extremely risky, and so it leads to that locking BB in the office so that he can get one-on-one with Henry Ford. And he just says, "Hey, you paid for this vehicle? Let's go for a ride."
Right.
And just that scene, and I truly in my deepest soul want to believe that this really happened. And it happened exactly how it played out in the movie. But he takes Henry Ford in this GT40 and just floors it and is going on the turns and the G-forces and just experiencing what this race car can do. And then finally stops him and he's alone in the car and then the guy just starts crying. Henry Ford just starts weeping.
He just has no idea.
Yeah, no
a car
idea.
could perform like this and go that fast. Yeah.
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 Love that scene. And yeah, because you think like he's scared. I mean, I think he was. But
it'd be terrifying.
Yeah, he's terrifying.
Yeah.
But he was crying because and it's really a cool scene because he's like, if my grandfather could only see, if he could have seen this.
Right.
Because his grandfather created the automobile. And when it's just like a little putt-putt machine.
Yeah.
And you're just worrying about getting placed, from here to there. And these guys take his invention and just go with it.
Yeah, it's practically a rocket ship.
Practically a rocket.
Just takes off. Yeah.
And nowhere would he have ever thought that, if my grandpa would ever have saw this coming, that we could ever get to this height of technology, which is really cool.
Yeah. And then the risky proposition was, you basically said, let Ken drive in,
if he wins Daytona.
If he wins Daytona, then he's going to drive Le Mans.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually put
his company out.
Yeah, all of Shelby American. He says, and if he loses, Ford gets Shelby American.
Yeah,
everything.
Which I love that, because he truly believed in Miles. He truly believed in his ability. So yeah, that's really cool.
And then that Daytona race was just
that was
over
so
the top. That was so good.
That was filmed in Fontana Raceway.
That's right.
The whole scene.
Yeah.
Which is not too far from where we live.
Yeah.
So
that would have been cool to go see.
Yeah.
Because we knew nothing about it at the time they were filming, but it would have been, and if I had known, I would have gone over there. That would have been super cool.
See those cars.
Yeah.
But that was a neat scene, and he pretty much sells it and makes sure that's his driver. He says, "You want to win Le Mans, you're gonna want him." Yeah.
And it's just so, I always thought it was just super cool how like they're always careful of the cars and not to push them too hard, and and with Leo Beebe, and we even control the RPMs. And like stupid smile on his face. Yeah. And basically, they're not going to win. Miles is just like, he's holding back, and Carroll says, "Okay, push it 7,000 plus." And just lets him go, and he's like, "Yeah."
Yeah, and that's how they win. And I that's one thing I never really got, because to my extent of racing, like, I know NASCAR, like I actually like NASCAR. I like the whole just going around in a circle, because it truly is like all the engine specifications are all the same, and it truly comes down to who's the better driver.
Right.
But when it was these races, I really didn't know that now you're building the better car, but like you're running the risk of it just not working, and then you're out of the race entirely. Like I love that scene when he just walks out with that sign and just, he says like 7,000 plus, go like hell.
Go like hell, yeah. And he just goes.
And he says, all right.
Yeah, and that's Ken's advantage, because he knows the cars, he knows the engines, he knows what they can take, and he can feel it, he can hear it.
Mm-hmm.
He could probably even, he can take it up to 7K, even further.
Yeah.
And he'll know if the engine's starting to come apart, because he can just feel it.
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, I can push it. I can push it." And sure enough, those extra RPMs just pushed him to victory.
Yeah, that was a cool scene.
Super,
but it wasn't the main race, right? We're still leading up to the race of all races, which was Le Mans.
But all the races are so awesome.
But
in this
they're
movie.
also
The
awesome.
Willow Springs race was great. The Daytona race was great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And which goes back to editing too. I mean, God, hats off to the editor on this thing, just piecing all those things together.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we finally get to the Le Mans race, and so I didn't know that in racing back then, you actually ran to your car. Like, that was part of the race.
Right.
Like again, I'm a NASCAR guy. The NASCARs are going around in a circle before the actually race starts, and then you just put on the gas. But these race car drivers were on the other side of the track, and they physically run. So it's like whoever can get in the car first can get going. Whoever's fastest.
Yeah, it's like who started that? I mean, it's like, you could trip and fall. I mean,
right. I'm sure people did, right?
Yeah.
Or even if you did fall, and maybe someone got into a car first, and then you might get ran over.
Yeah.
I don't know. And that was pretty hectic too. Yeah. Like right from the start, there were cars crashing, because now all these cars are pulling out at the same time, and they're not seeing each other, and they're just crashing in. Like, that's it. You're 24 hours in Le Mans. It's over.
Yeah.
And like, that was one thing I loved about Christian Bale's character, Miles, is that I loved all his comments when he's racing, like all his like reactions, like, "Oh hell." Like he really was experiencing all these moments.
Oh, and I love how he stares down the other driver.
Yeah.
It psychs him out.
Yeah.
Yeah, like at Daytona, he's like pulls up next to I can't think of the driver's name, and he just stares at him, and it just totally psychs him out. And then he basically hits the Mustang, and that one flew off the track and blew up.
Yeah.
But yeah, he stares him down, insults him as he's passing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
But I don't know about you, but I've been in these situations too where you have planned for so many things. You have practiced, you have planned, but when it finally comes to it, something goes wrong. And just like in real life, they hit something wrong. And it's as stupid as like his door won't shut.
Yeah.
Like they have worked so tirelessly on the engine of this car. They've done all these things. They have tried to like figure out how can we, your brakes are constantly going out. How can we make it easier to put new brakes on? And they're figuring all this out. And when it comes to the race, I can't shut the door.
Yeah.
And he does a whole lap with that door.
Yeah.
Just he pulls up, the door won't bloody shut.
And what did he say? It's hitting the belt. I think he said like it's hitting the belt. It's like probably something. Oh, let's put a new belt thing in there so he can something. Like because in my mind I'm kind of thinking, well, why didn't it close?
Yeah, well, he eventually got the hammer and he just
Phil came out.
Phil came in, just got the hammer
right.
and shut it, and he took off.
See, I always see Phil and I'm like, that would be me.
Yeah, just get the
Get
hammer
out of the way. I know what it is, and he just hits with a melt and boom, he's off. Yeah.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
The door's not working. Yeah. But yeah, so that is such a cool race. And
what was weird is when I first saw this movie, I thought, oh man, the race action was so good, and I thought a lot of it was digital. Like some of the shots I got, I'm like, oh, this is CG. Oh, this is No, it wasn't. I mean, these are all practical shots.
Yeah.
And I was watching like the behind the scenes stuff and all the different camera cars and camera rigs and stuff that they put together to get the shots. It was super cool.
So did they have a real GT40s?
I don't think.
Or do you think it was like just a shell, or
Yeah, I think they were made. I mean, there's a lot of
like a Honda Civic engine or something.
Basically, yeah, they took a Honda and then put a fiberglass GT40.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, there's tribute cars and kit cars and stuff out there. So,
right.
I always like to look at the cars like in the pit and say, yeah, it's a fake Porsche.
Yeah.
4 lugs on that Porsche? I don't think so.
Right.
You can tell the fake ones.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, but the action and the racing action, the cinematography, man, it's so cool.
So coming down to it, remember, this is, again, it's Ford versus Ferrari, and they're finally racing each other. And you got old man Ferrari in the booth watching his cars perform and the Ford perform. And so it really came down to the second day, right? It was a second day. And can he keeps not being able to pass Ferrari yet, but he's always close because that door thing actually put him behind.
Right.
But at one point he's like, you gotta pass him twice, right? In order for you to get any close, you gotta pass Ferrari twice. He goes, all right, no problem, and he does it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think hands down.
But because they had the advantage, though. They had the advantage of speed. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I thought was like really cool is like, we'll just make the car faster. Just make a super fast car. But what the thing you had to consider is that you hit those speeds on the straights, but you got to be able to slow the car down.
Yeah, slow the car down.
Yeah, and that was the thing. I mean, it's about braking too. So it's not only about speed, but then it's about being able to stop.
Brake on the right moments. The right time.
And then on top of that, how long is it going to last? Mm-hmm. Like, okay, well, now we can stop, but how long are these going to last?
This car is a 24-hour race, so that car's got to last 24 hours.
Yeah, if they didn't,
at these high speeds.
Yeah, if they didn't figure out how to swap out the brake assembly, then they wouldn't have been able to beat him.
Yeah,
because Ken was running that car so hard to beat Ferrari, and he basically knew that they were just going to burn up the brakes, and then that would be it.
That'll be it.
But sure enough, they figured out how to swap out the whole assembly. I wonder if they do that now. Do they do that?
Because the part's apart.
A part's apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were to pull it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was another thing. Like throughout the whole race, even though he's behind Ferrari, he is still breaking lap records. Like he is just, Ken Miles is beating all these lap records over and over and over. He beat the record once. The next lap, he's beating his own record now.
Yeah.
He's beating records. So he has the faster car.
Yeah.
He's just still behind Ferrari, and they're just so far ahead. But man, and again, hands down, I guess just the end of the movie. It's not really the end of the movie, but hands down my favorite scene, and it's that Rocky moment. And even watching it last week, there's still I get emotional. Like there's an emotional response when you see when again they're coming to that moment where now we're talking about, well, who's the better car, not necessarily the better driver because that's already proven, but the better car, and you got they're both pushing their cars to the limit, but Ferrari can't do it, and it blows up and it's out. Yeah,
Ken's pushing it hard. He's revving higher.
Yeah,
and Ferrari's like, oh, I'm doing it too.
Yeah, he pushes hard just to boom. Yeah. And just like when Ken finally realizes that happens, he's like, oh my God. Like he did it. Like even though the race is you still got many more hours left in the race. He's just like, I did it. Like we did it. We beat Ferrari. And he's like, he can't believe it himself. Yeah. And again, it's just Christian Bale just knocked that scene out of the park. The whole, his whole acting of this character, just such a good scene. And it's up there, probably one of my favorite scenes of all time in any movie because it's so good.
He is so good. He plays his role so well. Man, to me, if the movie can end there,
it could. That would be great because, I don't know. Do you want to talk about the way the rest of this movie goes?
No, we have to because I think that.
Yeah.
Well, first off. Okay, so
it's not that the movie goes bad.
It doesn't go bad
because it's still a great ending movie, but it's just you feel for the character.
Look, I mean, Ken Miles he's a race car driver. This is Le Mans. Yeah.
Right.
He's going to win Le Mans.
Yeah.
He's going to win. Right.
This is like winning the Super Bowl.
It's like winning the Super Bowl.
the top of your thing.
It's not like the team winning. Like singular guy winning. Mm-hmm. And then they tell him to slow down. He could have just booked it. Mm-hmm. Crossed the finish line 2 laps above, ahead of everybody else and won.
Yeah.
What would you have done?
Would
you have slowed down and brought the team in?
I don't know.
Because in my mind I'm thinking, in the moment when he's like driving and he's like it's up to him.
So he tells him when he's not even driving yet. He's still, he's on break.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd almost, in my mind, I'm thinking, I'd be like, you know what? Forget Ford.
Yeah.
These are just corporate people. This moment's gonna die in it's gonna be a memory. It's gonna fade. Nobody's gonna care. But Ken Miles, you think about yourself, winning Le Mans.
Because it's like
it's a big deal.
I can work anywhere. It's not like I have to work at Ford. Like any company's going to come after you after drive our cars.
Yeah. Why should I do this for Ford?
Yeah.
But then when he decides to do it, to be the team player and bring them all in, I think it said a lot. It said more about his character because of the way his wife responded.
Yeah, his wife was like, good for him.
Yeah. And even
his son was a bit like, what is he doing? Like his why is he slowing down?
But it was a better call.
Team
as a person. Mm-hmm. I think it was better that he did that.
Yeah, and two, before all that, after they ask him to do it, he gets in the car one more time. And what does he do? He has the perfect lap. He breaks his record again.
Yeah. So before he decides to back off, and before I slow down, I'm going to break another record, just to let everybody know,
I am the best driver.
I'm number one. And he made the call to slow down. To bring them all in.
But again, in his head, it was still that he was going to win. So it wasn't like he was going in together. He thought he was like, look, slow down so that you guys can all cross at the same time.
Yeah, I think that if he...
But the technicality was that it was a dumb technicality, and still I don't know if it doesn't make any sense because he still crosses the finish line, but because his partner, the other Ford car, started later, he technically went the furthest distance.
Yeah, and it makes sense, but if he shouldn't have slowed down. Was he 2 laps ahead?
Yeah, no, he was a lot of laps ahead.
Right. So
more than 2.
Does this make sense? If he had basically not slowed up to where he was at an even lap with everybody, but if he was still, say, just 1 lap ahead, and he slowed down with the 3 and came across the finish line still being 1 lap ahead, he would have won.
Yeah.
Right? But he slowed down to a point where he was now neck and neck with everybody and came across the finish line. And I think that if he knew that in his mind that, I started back further, I had to make sure I had to be this distance ahead, he probably would have figured that out and done that, but he didn't.
Yeah.
And did you catch the foreshadowing? It was the first time I caught it of that moment.
Mm-mm.
Remember, he's in Peter's bedroom and Peter drew out, Le Mans on the paper.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking, and he's like going through the race, and Peter had drawn the starting line, and so Ken says, "Well, this is where we start the race," and Peter says, "No, actually, you start back here. This is where you start and get in your car."
Oh,
and I was like, "Oh,
yeah." Oh, that's good.
And obviously, that was a purposeful foreshadowing that they put in there. Should have listened to his son.
Should have listened to his son.
Wait a minute. That's right. I didn't start there. I started back here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well.
And then he lost.
So it technically came in second.
Yeah.
But, and then, he takes it really well. He's just like, oh, okay. Says, but next year we're going to get him. And then, unfortunately, tragically, he didn't get to race again because he died in a crash, which is just, again, I think makes the loss so much more heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't get to fulfill that win. But proving himself that he's the better driver, definitely he accomplished. And
so we lose Ken, and then there's that the final scene where, Carroll shows up, to visit Molly, afterwards. Well, even before that, and he just 6 months later, and he's just devastated.
Yeah.
And I think that's.
Oh yeah, because he's working with another driver.
Yeah.
And the other driver's just like, how can you know how this car is? You borrowed the car. You raced it for less than an hour.
Nobody's ever going to live up to Miles.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that too is that Ken was his friend.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a real friend that he lost, and that pain that he's feeling. It's not just a coworker or another driver. I mean, they were, and I think that's what this movie really is about, is that friendship between the two of them. That kind of friendship where, you're working together and you're collaborating and you're joking and you're going through trials, and you can have a fight on the lawn and I mean, I think that kind of relationship is rare.
Mm-hmm.
that people have, and that that's something that Carroll Shelby that's he was a huge part of his life.
He lost it.
And it's just like, man, you just see it at the end. It's like he's just broken up. Yeah, because Peter even says like, he was your friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I'm here to help you, and he goes, well, no, you kind of need help too.
Yeah.
Because he was your friend.
He was your friend, and that's yeah.
So looking at Ford versus Ferrari, what could be that deeper theme that we like to look at? What is the story behind the story that helps us to, that helps us learn from the gospel? And I think for me, one of the bigger, if I was to summarize everything in one word, it'd be trust, right? I mean, you've got all these characters and all these people. You've got Lee Iacocca, or Ford having to trust Lee Iacocca in what was the right decision. You've got Lee Iacocca trusting in Carroll Shelby and vice versa. And then Carroll Shelby, shoot. All that stuff I said before, we can still keep, right?
Yeah. Well, was that even better?
The transition was a lot better.
Okay, so we'll keep.
I'll literally just cut
We'll
that
keep that transition. Okay.
Okay.
I'll just cut that in. It's fine. It'll work.
Do it one more time because I think you said Ford versus Ferrari kind of funny.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay, so with Ford versus Ferrari, what is that deeper story? What's that story we like to look for that's beyond the story in a sense? What's that gospel message? Good?
Good. Okay. Yeah.
All right. All right, we're almost done. All right, so this week, Jim, you don't have a movie magic.
I don't have a movie magic, but I thought you had a connection to
But
this movie.
I do, and it's not really magical, but it is pretty cool, and I always like watching it and looking out for it. So we said before that this movie was filmed in Fontana Raceway, not too far from our houses, but it was also filmed at Ontario Airport, which is right down the street from us, and it was actually my very first job working at the airport.
No, in the movie it was supposed to be LAX.
It's supposed to be LAX,
Right.
but it is for sure Ontario Airport. I mean, you see our mountain ranges in the back. Our mountain range. Our mountain range is very distinct, and so I got to show my kids like, look, there's our mountains. They're like, oh my gosh, that really is in the movie. But yeah, it's supposed to be LAX, but they filmed it in Ontario, and like I said, it was my very first job I ever had. Right out of high school, working at the airport and working in a hangar. I did all sorts of things like bringing in planes, unloading
you were the
them.
guy with the little light sticks, little lightsabers.
I was
right?
those guys. Those
that's
called
cool.
wing walkers.
Wait,
And-
the flashlight things are
Yeah,
called wing
that's what they're called,
walkers?
wing walkers. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You're just making sure things are clear. I don't know. It was
Why do you
once I
have-
learned the job.
Why do you have two? Like, do you like wave one hand more than the other to get the plane to move? a
I guess
different
like I
way?
hold one up,
Yeah.
and tell the plane to go.
Like get this,
and-
like bring this. Wing.
I guess. Really, the one that's in front of the plane is the most important one. But the ones on the side, I guess you're just making sure no one crashes into it.
Oh, okay.
But so did a bunch of things. But it was actually really cool was that Shelby's, his workshop where they're actually building the car and working on the car and they're testing it. That was actually a hangar that I actually worked in. So it was actually really cool to see that in play and where it was filmed. And again, had I known they were filming this movie right down the street from where I live, I would have been down there, and I didn't.
I
But
want to check it out.
But yeah, it's really cool.
Maybe we need to like be more on top of.
I used to be.
Where you get like the variety and get the
Yeah.
latest. Of course,
No,
all that's online.
There's a
now.
website that kind of tells you like what movies, but you also got to learn the codes because movies have codes.
Right, the working title.
The working title. So you
Yeah.
got to learn what those are. And, and when I worked at the airport, they filmed things there too. Nothing big. There wasn't any big movies when I was there. I was in a commercial. Well, I was filming a commercial and you could never see me in it. I had a friend that was in Seventh Heaven. They filmed the Seventh Heaven episode there once.
Okay.
But they film a lot of things at Ontario. A lot of things.
It's kind of a sleepy airport. It's not. It's
Well, they have the old airport that's like anything. It's funny because any airport that you need either like a South American looking airport
Yeah.
or an old 1950s, 60s airport,
Yeah.
they go to Ontario's old terminal. And not the new terminal, but the
Okay.
old one.
I mean, not that I do a lot of flying, but I'm always like, you go to Ontario Airport and it's just like, where's everybody?
Yeah,
It's like there's nobody here.
yeah.
It's like so if anybody wants to fly into LA, visit California, just
It's a lot more expensive to fly in Ontario than it is in LA. I don't know why, but it is.
but if you don't like the crowds,
But you don't like the crowds, pay that extra
pay
money.
that extra, because yeah.
All right. Well, man, let's get into this trivia battle because, well, for one, I don't know how this is going to go.
I don't
And
know.
don't ask me again. Don't ask me no car stuff.
I'm not asking
'Cause
you
I don't know
stuff.
cars.
I purposely didn't do
Like,
any
don't say,
car
what
stuff.
was the cubic engine of this? I'm not going to know.
Okay.
So we realized that we had a lot of the similar questions. So we had to eliminate a lot of questions. I have one.
Actually, three of us. So I've had the question, you had the question,
Yeah.
and Joel, the sound guy, had the same question. And the question was, when Shelby was fighting Ken.
What was the grab he used?
Yeah.
The llama bite.
The llama bite.
Yeah. So, and then you said another one of my questions that I had, which is who buys Ferrari? It was Fiat. So I'm down to one question, but I think I have two just off the top of my head. So I think I can do two.
I have two.
Yeah. So you have two?
I got three.
Okay, well, all I got is two.
I mean, the good ones are we use those up. So
Yeah.
my questions are going to be lame, but okay.
All right. Well, why don't you go first?
Okay. Question one. Okay. The Triple Crown, the three races that make up the Triple Crown. What three races are they?
Yeah, because that was the whole thing. Like, hey, you've won the Triple Crown no matter what. Slow down.
Yeah.
So it's Daytona.
Right.
And it's Le Mans.
Yeah. One more race.
I don't.
I thought we said it in our conversation.
Is it Willow Springs?
No.
Oh, then I don't know.
Sebring.
Sebring.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Sebring. Dang it.
Yeah.
That's good. That was a good question. That was a good one. All right. 0.
I got a point.
Got a point. No, you don't got a point yet. I just didn't get a point. But tell you what.
You don't get you get a point if you guess
Yes.
it. Oh, okay.
So, what is the number of the final Ferrari car? The final one that blows up. What's its number?
Oh, I should know this.
But you don't?
I don't think I do.
Awesome. Because he said, Engineer Joel said you were going to get this one.
Wow. I'm just going to say number 2.
Yeah. It is. There's a 2 on it, but it's 21.
21.
Oh, man. No points for you.
Man, no points for me.
All right. What's the next one?
Okay, so the Willow Springs race at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and the announcer announces the race, and he also announces the year.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. Just guess the year?
Yeah, I guess the year.
1965.
No, 1963.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, so the race that he had when he threw the wrench, that was 1963?
That was 63. And then 66 was the
With the
big,
Le Mans.
Yeah,
So I wouldn't have thought like it was that far of a gap between those races, but
there's a lot of history that's kind of missing too.
Yeah.
That they didn't touch on in the movie is the whole the Daytona Cobra that Shelby and Miles put together, and that was a whole nother race car.
Mhm.
And you see the cars in the shop. But that was a revolutionary new race car that they just blew.
Was that the one he was selling to people?
No,
All those people kept coming in. He goes, "Do not give him this car because I owe multiple Cobras to all these people."
No, they developed the Cobra and got that one up and running, and then they raced it at Willow Springs and won.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, the next big race or the next big car they put together was the Daytona Cobra, or the Cobra Daytona. Looks a lot like the GT40 a bit, but it had revolutionary design as far as the shape of the car. I thought it was kind of funny looking. Great story behind that. I highly recommend you watch the 24-Hour War. And I was a little disappointed they didn't touch on that, but it would have made the movie way too long.
Too long.
But the story behind that particular car and the development of that was huge. So so there's 3 years then between Willow Springs and Le Mans.
All right, here's my question, probably my final question, because you know all my other ones. The fight scene, we talked about this.
Yeah.
The fighting.
Yeah.
What was it that he did pick up? You know it was a can, but what was it?
I can't believe this. Because I was thinking about looking that up and like pausing it to see what it was. I'm like, nah, it's just a can. It's a can of something, right?
You're right. It is a can.
Okay, so I have to determine what could be a can of beans. Could
Well,
be
you
a can
gotta
of vegetables,
pick something, man.
Could be a can of corn. Let's see, he's English, right?
Okay, you're really thinking this through.
I'm thinking this up, yeah, way too much. I don't know. It's a can of chili.
Can of peaches.
Oh, peaches.
Yeah.
Oh. You can really see that it's a can of peaches in the scene?
Yeah. I hope so. Because again,
what do you mean you hope so?
Well,
So you don't know.
again, this is me trying. I had to just come up with a question, but in my notes, I wrote can of peaches, as in like because I wanted to talk about how he picked up the can. So I hope.
So wait a minute. So you don't even know if it is a can of peaches. You just.
But I'm like
assuming.
I'm 99%. I wouldn't have just wrote can of peaches if I didn't know that it was peaches.
Unless he.
So, I think I'm right, and we'll do a retraction in the next show if I'm wrong.
If it's not peaches.
Yeah.
All right.
Then I'll gladly, but I'm pretty sure it's peaches.
So he puts down the can of peaches
Yeah.
and he grabs a loaf of bread.
Loaf of bread.
That was Wonder Bread, right?
Wonder Bread,
It looked
yeah.
like Wonder Bread.
All right, what's your question?
Are we gonna go for 3 now?
Oh, you asked 2. Okay, I have a question. You're probably gonna get it, but so when we first meet, I think it's the very first time we meet Ken Miles. He's working in a shop, right?
Yeah.
He's an auto mechanic for a specific type of car.
Right.
What was his recommendation to the man that was complaining about his car not working right?
He's not driving it hard.
Yeah, that was a dumb question. Well, at least I asked you a third question. Now you got to ask me a third question.
Okay. So Ken's working in his shop. What's the name of his shop?
Ken's shop?
Yeah. What's the thing? And I looked and to make sure it was
man.
legible that you could actually, because you threw that Iron Giant Diner sign thing. So I'm going to do what's Ken's the name of Ken's shop?
Oh man, that was my guess. Ken's shop. I don't know.
Ken Miles Limited.
Ken Miles Limited.
Yeah.
Man. All right, you won. 1-0.
So the car, his customer, he had a black MGA.
Yeah.
And my dad had one briefly.
Oh, okay.
That he was going to fix up, and we were going to fix up, and didn't have it very long, but we took it out, drove it, here and there. But what's interesting is that it's an English car,
Mm-hmm.
so normally the driver would be on the on the left hand side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So the
Right hand side.
Right hand side, right. So the throttle linkage actually is over on the right hand side. So if you're the passenger in the car, you can just get your foot up underneath there and like hit the gas. so I would do that. I would go in there and I would just get my foot up under there and just hit the throttle. It's like, whoa.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. All right. Well, congratulations. You won Ford versus Ferrari. All right. Well, what are your rankings and final thoughts?
Rankings. You go first.
All right. My final thoughts is, again, I hope, if anything, what we did is that we got some people that have never seen this movie listening to this podcast and are now interested in this movie, because I do believe this is a movie that everyone needs to see, everyone should experience, and this is where like these 4K discs come into play, because it might not really add much over the Blu-ray as far as visuals, but the sound is where it comes in. So if you've got a good sound system,
I think that was the second Oscar win.
Sound
design.
That car, and I turned it up, and my kids took off. They went into the other room. I turned this bad boy. This is a good sounding movie, and the car engines and all that stuff. But man, if anything, please see this movie. It's so good. I will buy you a soda if you disliked it. So to me, this movie,
a fizzy pop.
I will buy you a fizzy pop. Yeah. It's a 9. It's a 9 for me.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a 9. And I guess like for me, like just again, because it's a true story, why it's not any higher. I mean, 9 for me is still a great movie, but it's not I wouldn't say it's necessarily a yearly movie for me. Maybe it is a yearly movie, but you know, it's why it's not higher is because there's the more historical stuff kind of missing, but I get why they had to take some of that stuff out. But yeah, for me, it's a 9.
It's a great movie. I think the more we talked about it, we realized that it is a lot about the friendship between these two guys.
Mm-hmm.
So that alone, it's just a great story. You know?
Yeah.
You know, it's a true story. It's automotive racing history. And, you know, like I said earlier, you know, that race was the one like top race story of all auto racing, is that battle between Ford versus Ferrari and that date at Le Mans.
Yeah.
Le Mans.
Le Mans.
Le Mans.
Le Mans.
Le Mans. But for this, I love everything about this movie. The time period, the cars, the actors, the story, everything is just great. And so for me, I watch this at least twice a year. This is a twice a year. Yeah. I just love this movie. And this is a 10.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
I originally ranked it at a 9.9.
Okay.
And I ranked it before I watched it again before the podcast. And I was like, no.
Now I feel like I ranked it too low.
Yeah.
But I'll stick with it. I'll stick with a 9.
The thing that I was like, wasn't any real memorable like soundtrack to it, but then watching it, I'm like, oh no,
It's got a really good soundtrack.
It has a really good soundtrack. So
yeah,
it's got a little bow bow bow.
It's a bow bow.
Chicka boom.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Was that a song, or they just make that up?
I think that's from the movie. Yeah.
Is it chicka boom like a movie from or a song from the '60s? Or they just made it up.
I think it made it up.
It's not some crazy '60s band. I bet.
No.
I don't know. But yeah, it's a 10. It's a 10 for me.
Awesome.
Big.
I think everyone that I have ever recommended this movie to that did actually watch it, they all loved it. They were like, wow, yeah, that was really good. So yeah, please go watch it. So
Ford versus Ferrari.
Ford versus Ferrari.
I think before we sign off, we should have one more race.
Okay.
Who's Ferrari? Who's Ford? I forgot.
I'm always Ferrari.
You're Ferrari. All right.
Because I'm the man you got to beat.
All right. Sound engineer Joel, count us down.
3, 2, 1, go.
Oh, look at you. You think you're ahead.
Up to.
But then Ferrari overtakes you. Oh, you're going to... Oh, no, it's over. All right, well, that does it for this week. Thank you for tuning in. And again, if you like this type of thing, us talking about movies and those deeper themes, please give us a like and subscribe, and that would really help us out. And again, thank you guys for hanging out with us. Go get this movie.